Good morning guys, welcome back to another weekly reading vlog, and right now it is Monday morning and I am going to be telling you about the first of 5 polar bear shapeshifter fantasy romances I'm going to be reading this week. So I feel like I need to do a little bit of backstory on this whole situation. It is Polarthon this week, which is a 1 week long readathon hosted by Jade from Jade Reads, who is one of my good friends, and it centers on reading polar fantasy, which is fantasy that is in a cold or snowy setting. The other readathon I'm participating in February is Faro Feb, which is a whole month-long event thing that has a readathon attached to it, and there's bingo boards with prompts and stuff, but essentially the aim is to just read as much fantasy romance as you want to, as much fantasy romance as you can. So a few weeks ago I was looking up polar fantasy because I only actually have a couple left. I think I've got Winter Song by S.J. Jones, and I could also buy and read the rest of the His Dark Materials series that I started for Polathon or Believathon a couple of years ago. But while my TBR, my Bookopoly TBR, is actually quite short this month, it is the shortest month of the year, and I have added a couple of extra books to my TBR that I'm definitely going to be reading, one of which is quite large because it's A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. So I didn't want to read some huge books. I've heard that Winter Song is quite slow and it's also pretty chunky. It's not like a big book, but it's not small or a fast read either. So on a whim, I went onto Amazon and I searched polar fantasy romance, and I found a polar bear shape-shifting romance. I can't even remember which one it was now, but I took a screenshot and I sent it to Jade and I was like, this exists and it is hilarious, and she told me to read it, so I was like, yeah, cool, I can read a polar bear shape-shifting fantasy romance, no problem. But then I was looking into it and it seems that polar bear shape-shifting romance is actually a niche, and there are far more books that I anticipated just chilling in that little niche genre. So the minimum requirement for Polathon is to read 3 books, but there are 5 prompts per team. I am on Team Walrus. I decided to kind of mash this together with Faro Feb, and I'm going to be reading 5 polar bear shape-shifting romances this week. So I decided to go through the prompts in order. I've screenshot a whole ton of the polar bear romances and I'm just fitting in the ones that I can for the prompts that I have. So I've actually started my first one because I started the readathon at midnight last night. I only read for like an hour and I got 78 pages into it. Something I didn't anticipate when I planned this video is that these are all really short. I don't think there's many that are over 200 pages, and if they are, they're only like 202 pages. It's worked out really well for me, I guess. So the first prompt I'm going for is Cold Waters, and for that one I'm reading, this is like, I don't have a clue what they're called or who they're by. For Cold Waters I'm reading Bearever Yours by Terry Ballrider. So for Polathon you don't actually have to read all polar fantasy, you only have to read one polar fantasy. The rest of the books can be other genres, but I am kind of stretching the theme anyway because surprisingly polar bear romances are not often set in cold locations. When I've been going through the synopses, I've noticed that quite a few of them are set in Florida. The one that I'm currently reading is set in the Caribbean. I've seen one in Alaska, one maybe in the Arctic. So yeah, like it's polar bear fantasy we're doing polar bearathon. I should be on Team Polar Bear actually, but Gavin is the team leader for Team Walrus, so that's what we're going with. But yeah, the Cold Waters prompt is just a book that has something to do with water, has water on the cover, contains water in the plot, and this one is about a woman called Leah who has won a competition that she never recalls entering, which sends her to this like 5-star luxury resort in the Caribbean. She arrives there with 2 other women, and I think the other women are going to be main characters in later books in the series, and she's given this mandatory itinerary of things that she has to do if she wants to stay at the resort, and they all surround water, which is something that she's not scared of, but she doesn't really like the water. And lo and behold, the polar bear shapeshifter we're following in this one is a dive instructor. He has 2 other brothers, and as there's 2 other women, like I said, I think the later books in the series are going to follow the other brothers and the other women, and it seems like their father has been trying to set them up, and this is the way that he's going about doing it. I will say that as this is quite short, it's only 175 pages. It's incredibly fast paced. Like by page 40, they were already about to get down and dirty, and I am having a great time, honestly. I'm gonna say straight off, this is not a great work of literature, but it's really fun and it's really funny. It's something that I just want to tell you guys, mild spoilers, it happens under the page 50 mark, but this is such a short book, so please mute me and skip along if you would like to. But this woman has like no idea what shapeshifters are, so she asks him a question and he says, oh, we don't need to worry about that because we're shifters, because apparently she's one as well, and she has no idea what this means. And they're just about to have sex as well. This is when this happens. They're just about to have sex, and instead of sitting her down and being like, okay, I'm a shifter, I turn into a polar bear, he goes into the living room. He doesn't say anything to her. He gets up, he goes into the living room and turns into a polar bear, and she screams. And oh my god, when I read that last night, I was wheezing. Like, it's just so ridiculous. It's real fast paced. It's like real insta-lovey. Page 40, he's already recognized that she's his mate, and something in the synopsis says that he has to save her from an evil bear. So it's just some real wild stuff. I will say, in terms of like critical aspects of it, like the writing is okay, the story, I am enjoying it, but it is just really fun right now and I'm having a really great time. So it's Monday morning, it's like just gone 11 I think, and I have some work to do. I'm editing last week's vlog today, and I also have to go and do the big food shop, which I don't want to do because I don't like to take the delivery slots, because there aren't many delivery slots and there are vulnerable people who need the delivery slots. So my able-bodied, perfectly capable ass is not comfortable with taking up people's delivery slots, but the supermarkets that are like in my direct vicinity are not good. So the nearest big supermarket is like 30 minutes away, and it's real busy. It's not in a fabulous area, but I need to brave it and get myself some food. We only go like once a month, and then just top up on essentials like milk and bread and stuff from the shops around here. So I have that. What is going on out there? So I have that to look forward to this evening, but I am hoping with this vlog to be finishing one polar bear romance a day. So hopefully by the end of the day I will have finished Bear Yours, because I do have other books I need to be reading this week as well. The first of which is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher. I actually have a live event with Amanda Boucher this Sunday, so I'm going to read this before that. If you look on this, actually it's called A Promise of Fire, but it does have ice around the edges, so technically can count for Polathon, but it is just something I'm going to be reading on the side. So my aim is to finish a polar bear romance a day and then read maybe up to 100 pages of this. And I also have Ship of Destiny, which I don't have with me at the minute, I've left it upstairs, which I'm reading for Elder Lingalong. The live show for that is on the 13th of February, so I do have some time with that one, but it is 900 pages, so I want to be chipping away at it slowly. I started it in January, so I don't have to take punishment. I read 30 pages I think. I read the prologue and the first chapter last night in the bath, so I don't have to take a Bookopoly punishment, but yeah, I'm going to be chipping away at that as well. But the focus of this week and this vlog is going to be Polathon and polar bear smut, and aren't we all excited about it?
All the things she kept inside, she told the morning sun. She's walking down the hall, she keeps asking why. She looks so fine, shifting all your words. She's so high, moving on the dance floor, moving on the dance floor. She lives a lushy life with boys around her back. She acts like she don't care when she bangs your door. She looks so fine.
So I am just about to go to bed. It is not actually that late, it's just past 11 p.m, but I'm going to get in bed and read for a bit. But I'm here to check in with you guys first because I've actually already finished Wherever Yours by Terry Bell Ryder. I gave it 3 stars. Now I feel like I need to make it clear that quality wise this is like a 2-star book, but I just really enjoyed it because it made me laugh out loud at quite a few points. It's something kind of negligible editing wise. There's like typos all over the show, but they are easy to ignore, but they are there. It's like 173 pages and it is super insta-lovey. Like by page 42 they are already nearly getting it on. The word mate is being thrown around. The only real complication in the plot is kind of threaded throughout the beginning, but it resolves like real quickly. Some of the stuff is ridiculous. The guy is like a little bit weird in like an alpha territorial way, but that is something that is common in shapeshifter romances because of like the animal nature of having a shapeshifter love interest. But it was super cheesy as well, like real cheesy. There were some just real like nauseating lines and I grimaced a few points in there. But enjoyability wise, it was really fast paced, it was really fun. I didn't go into it expecting it to be this like ship that I would die for or anything. I knew the length of it when I went into it, so I just thought it would be like a short fun romance, and that is pretty much exactly what it was. So it's not fantastic, it's not amazing, there wasn't great chemistry there, but I did enjoy reading it and it was fast paced and it was fun. So I gave that 3 stars and that is the first prompt for Polarthon ticked off. The next prompt is dive in, and I haven't planned my TBR ahead of time. I've just been looking at a prompt and then flicking through the screenshots that I have of all the different polar bear romances I found and finding the one that best fits. But the dive in prompt, Jade says in the announcement video, is for a book that you want to dive into, like you're excited to read. And I think, let me just get my phone. I haven't decided on this for sure yet. I will let you know tomorrow whether this is the one that I'm actually going for, but all of the like synopses etc are pretty similar on them. They're all kind of like contemporary romances with a guy who shapeshifts into a polar bear, but there is one that's slightly different, and it is the one that sounds a little bit more like the type of fantasy romance that I would normally read. It's called Polar Enemies, and also on the front of the book it says a winter solstice shifter romance. So I've only screenshotted the cover, so I'm gonna get that up here because I think the female main character in this one is like a goddess or something and the guy's a shapeshifter. It says a powerful winter queen, the warrior who would claim her for his mate, a deadly secret keeping them apart. Alpha bear shifter Theon went mad with grief and murdered his mate, only she didn't die, and the dark unicorn sorceress Elstay has finally returned. Will she wreak vengeance on his clan down to the last cub, or will the solstice moon bring peace and healing? So that is the one that sounds most interesting, but because she's a winter queen, I think this is set in a snowy setting, and I do have 2 prompts that I'll need to fill. One in an Arctic setting, so somewhere snowy and cold, and one for the polar fantasy prompt, which, because we're twisting it to polar bear fantasy, they would all fit, but I do kind of want to keep that one as true to the actual nature as I can while still doing this polar bear shapeshifting thing. I'm gonna decide in the morning which one I'm gonna go for the dive in prompt, but Polar Enemies is a good contender. It only has 64 ratings on Goodreads and it's only 145 pages. I'm gonna have a think, I'm gonna have a look through all of the ones that I found, see if I can make sure that I have the polar fantasy and Arctic setting ones reserved, and if I can find ones that definitely fulfill those prompts, then I will go ahead and read Polar Enemies. But I'm trying to read a book a day, so I imagine at some point tomorrow I will come in and confirm anyway what I'm actually going to be reading. Hey guys, so I'm just taking my makeup off because I am about to get into the shower, but it is around 8:30 p.m. and I have not told you about the book I started. I did start Polar Enemies. I'm like 30% of the way through. I haven't read too much today at all, and I did start Polar Enemies earlier in the day, but I only read a chapter, so I've just read a good like, I don't know, 20% now. I'm on 27%, which is like probably around 40 pages of the way through, and for the first few chapters I was a little bit confused. It's kind of like a blend of low fantasy, high fantasy. They're in a snowy setting, so I got that bit right at least, but I'm not sure at the moment whether they're in like a high fantasy world or just like a snowy part of the real world, and it was a little bit confusing the way it started. So it is dual perspective, and the start part of every chapter is something that happened a few years ago, and then the rest is like present timeline. So we're following this guy who's a polar bear shifter and this woman who's a unicorn shifter, but also like the queen of the winterlands and a sorceress. And many years ago, I don't know how many, maybe 10, the polar bear guy killed the unicorn, and from what I can tell there was a clan war between the bears, and some of these bears split off, but they were the weaker ones and the more vulnerable ones, and they ended up on the outskirts of this winter queen's land, and she didn't want to let them in because they're known as being invaders, and she tried to strike a bargain with them. If they bent the knee, they would be allowed into her country, and they didn't like that. They didn't want to accept this deal. Something happened to the polar bear guy's niece. He was really angry, he was grieving, and they all decided, the polar bears that is, that the only way they could be free of the war would be to kill the unicorn queen. So that is what he did, or at least he thought he did. However, they were also in love, and aside from that, he apparently didn't actually kill her. She was in some sort of like paralysis state for a couple of years, and now she has woken up and she has no memory of what he did to her. She has like a big gap in her short-term memory, and for some reason she has come to scout this land where the polar bears are. The polar bears have noticed that she's there. She's been captured, and all of the memories kind of resurfacing, and he's like shocked that she's alive. So that is where I'm up to in it. I have to say I am actually enjoying it. I like the writing style. It is only 145 pages, so I think at the end of this my complaint is going to be that it's too short, but I knew that going into this. I knew that it was going to be a 145 page book, but it's promising so far. I'm enjoying it. I'm hoping the confusion's going to clear up, and yeah, I don't really know what direction it's going to go in with it only being 145 pages, but from what I've read of it so far, I would appreciate a full-length story that surrounds all of this. So I'm hoping to finish that tonight. I also started A Promise of Fire last night. I'm 40 pages into that. I'm really enjoying that so far as well. Not really going to tell you much about it because I'm not too far into it, but right now I'm gonna go get a shower, and then I'm going to head back downstairs, read as much of Polar Enemies as I can, hopefully finish it, and then switch back over to Promise of Fire later. But yeah, keep your fingers crossed for me that I actually continue to enjoy Polar Enemies because it's looking good so far. It is much later in the day now. It is almost midnight, not quite. It's 11:50, and I have finished my second book for Polathon, which was Polar Enemies. My assumptions about how I would feel about it by the time I got to the end were completely right earlier. It came out as 3 stars in the end, but it is like a much higher 3 stars than Bear Over Yours. Bear Over Yours only just scraped to 3 stars. It was on the cusp of like 2 stars. Polar Enemies is like high 3 stars, not a million miles away from 4 stars. So the main kind of thing in this one is that the 2 clans need to come to some sort of agreement so that the polar bear clan doesn't die out. And the problem with the Winter Queen's kingdom or queendom is that they have hard winters too, and they don't have enough resources for all of the people. However, in the midst of this war, they did fall in love. He ended up killing her, but she wasn't really dead. So I really liked the writing style in this. The author for this one was Emma Allison, and I am actually interested in reading more from her in the future, but I think I'm going to stipulate that I would like to read a full-length book from her, or something a little bit longer than 145 pages. My main issue with this is that it was just too short, and it kind of felt like a good fantasy romance book that had all of the, I don't want to say filler because those are parts that I appreciate, but all of the little in-between bits stripped out of it. So like we were skipping along quite a lot, and between chapters like big periods of time would pass, like days and weeks would just be gone in between the chapters. So that meant that it was like quite disjointed, a little bit skippy, but it was also a weird blend of like high and low fantasy because it was actually set in the real world. It was mentioned that the bears were from cities, there was mentions of things like plains and stuff in there, but it had a very high fantasy feel, which I think the Winter Queen and that element was responsible for. There's a couple of elements of the romance that I didn't enjoy, as I mentioned yesterday with bear romances with any kind of shapeshifter shapeshifter romances, you do tend to have a lot of like alpha males and territorial stuff, which I do actually like in certain situations where there is also like a strong female to counteract that. And it is about like, you have that territorial nature, but you also have respect for the female character, and like the female character is not going to start simpering before an alpha male. In this, I felt like the female character, who was a very strong female character, was kind of giving up parts of herself and her assertiveness in some elements because there was a dominant male character, and I didn't really enjoy that. The plot twists in here were absolutely wild, but one of them especially I didn't think was necessary, and I did feel like the inclusion of it was in poor taste. It does include a trigger warning in that, but as it is a plot twist, which it shouldn't be because I don't think it should have been included, but in case any of you guys intend to read this one, I will pop the trigger warning for that book in the right at the bottom of my description box, so you can check it out if you do need it, because I don't want to say it because spoilers, but it is like necessary. It came out of nowhere, wasn't needed, wasn't a fan of that. The smut was okay, it wasn't overwhelming. I think I just really liked the interaction between the characters. I just really liked the writing in here, which is not something that I expected going into this. 3 stars, really did enjoy it, but would have loved to have more of it. And providing that Emma Allison does write longer books, with all of these books being really short, I don't know whether this is a super common thing, because this specific type of fantasy romance, like paranormal shape-shifting romance, is not something that I read a lot of. It's not my usual. I tend to go for like high fantasy slow burns as opposed to these like short steamy novellas, I guess. So providing Emma Allison does write longer books, then I will definitely consider reading more from her in the future, because I did really enjoy this one. So I'm about to go to bed. I will be reading some more, but I'm going to be reading A Promise of Fire because I do have to have that done by Sunday. So I'm hoping to get through a considerable chunk of that before I go to sleep. But my Polarthon book for tomorrow, I've kind of like nailed down my TBR now. I've figured out the ones that have snowy settings, but the next prompt along the wheel is dark cover, and for this one I'm going to be reading Polar Bond by Aria Chase. So this one is the second book in the Emerald City Shifter series, but I do believe it is one of those series where all of the books are standalones, kind of like the first book I read in this video, Bear Over Yours. All of the books are standalones, you don't have to read them in order, but they do kind of make up a series set in the same world. I'm assuming the world would be Emerald City here. So from the synopsis, this follows a girl who is visiting Seattle for her best friend's wedding, and she's immediately attracted to the best man, who reciprocates her feelings and lavishes her with expensive gifts. The guy in question is called Kingston Mead, and he knew that Grace was his mate the moment he laid eyes on her. He's determined to claim her and show her what passion truly means, but only on his terms. There's mention of a big secret here. I'm guessing the big secret is that he changes into an enormous polar bear. And then at the bottom it says this steamy novella is a standalone BBW billionaire bear shifter paranormal romance. I'm loving this book, guys. Honestly, I'm having the best time. This one is 92 pages, so I do think that this is going to be the shortest book that I read in this week. This is the one that was kind of the wild card. I wanted to get it in there at some point, but there are, believe it or not, there are quite a few polar bear shape-shifting romances out there, so there's quite a few I could have chosen from. I don't know. The cover of this one speaks to me. Is it the attractive blonde man with the rippling abs? It could very well be. I don't know. I actually think I like the green shades on this cover, to be honest. That is the one that I'm going to be reading tomorrow. 92 pages. Don't anticipate it taking me a long time. And yeah, I'll let you know what I think tomorrow. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. It is almost 4 p.m. and I've just finished everything I need to do for the day, but I am actually tempted to make the thumbnail for this video. I'm trying to like work out if there's anything else that's like more priority than that, but I'm just really excited to make it for some reason. But yesterday was a complete wash. I spent pretty much the entirety of yesterday filming and editing. So I think I started filming at around midday, and I had a break in the evening for dinner, but by the time I got everything done it was like 9:30 p.m. and then I played Fortnite with Curtis and Ryan, so it didn't leave time for much reading. But I am currently 25% of the way through, is it Polar Bond? Is that what I'm reading at the minute? It's real short. Like, it says that it's 92 pages, but if you look at the actual ebook it says 82, so a real short book. So I read about 20 pages of that. Can't really give you a synopsis on it. It is literally so far just this woman has gone to her best friend's wedding and she's met the guy who's the best man and she's really attracted to him, but there's this other woman who I'm assuming it is the Panther Shifter that's named in the synopsis that isn't happy about those two growing close. It's okay so far, like completely fucking blindsided me though, just randomly. This is gonna get pretty erotic, I think, but after like the main characters met, there was an altercation between the main character and the Panther Shifter. She ended up with red wine all over her dress. She went to try and clean her dress in the bathroom. The guy shows up at the bathroom doorway and tells her to take her dress off and change into a robe in the middle of the hotel lobby, and she does it. And then she has nothing else to wear, so she goes upstairs, she goes to bed, and she starts fantasizing, and I'm like, yeah, fair enough, whatever. And she's thinking about how he's going to be smooth to touch, aside from like when she touches his chest hair or his ball sack. Like, I didn't need it. I didn't need to be blindsided by ballsack right then and there, but it happened. So that's why I'm up to with that one. But because I didn't have a lot of time last night and Polarthon runs till like the end of Sunday, I have a live show for this book on Sunday, so I need to have this finished ideally by Saturday. I read some more of this, so I've been reading about 40 pages a day, which I do actually need to ramp up, but I'm on page 126 of this and I am really enjoying this one. So I don't really know the logistics and the full deal with the world and the magic system right now, but we have this icy kingdom in the north and the south is like ruled by these warlords. The main character is a soothsayer in the circus. I'm gonna put this down so I can't be bothered holding it, but she is from the north and she's run away and she's in hiding because she is something called the Kingmaker, and she can sense when people are lying. So she is somebody who is highly sought after by various people because she can get to the truth of situations essentially, and this gives her the power to make kingdoms rise and fall. So very like right at the beginning of this book, this guy comes in who's a warlord, realizes that she has the powers that she has and kidnaps her. And I'm only on page 126, but everything so far has been a traveling scene because they're traveling to the kingdom that this guy is actually one of the rulers of. A little bit confused about the hierarchy and the politics in here so far, but he is Beta Cinta, which I think means that he's the second in command of the kingdom of Cinta, and his sister is the Alpha, who's supposedly real nice. It's funny, which I didn't expect. People kept saying to me that it was really fun, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with that information because it's not what I expected from this, but it is actually really funny. The main character is kind of awkward. I do have like, not an issue with her, but she reminds me of Spencer from Skyward in that she is quite childish and juvenile occasionally, and also really aggressive in ridiculous ways like Spencer is. Very similar characters there. So that bothers me a little bit just because the element of like childish behavior can be a little bit annoying to read about, but honestly these two characters have been glaring at each other since page 1. There's very obvious attraction there. I read a chapter not too long ago where they were sparring and the guy got a little bit too close, so she panicked and headbutted him in the nose. It's like a little bit violent, but I'm really enjoying it and I can't wait to continue. So my plan for the day is 4 p.m. almost right now, so I think I'm gonna go work out. I really don't want to, but I haven't done any cardio yet this week, so I may go do 35 minutes of cardio, and I hate that it has to be done, but it does. And then after that I'm going to spend probably most of the day reading, and my plans are to finish Polar Bond, which is only like 60 pages, and then continue on with this and see how much I can get done. I would like to get to at least page 250 in this. When I pick it up I am like so absorbed and I'm flying through it. It's just I've been picking it up late at night in bed just before I go to sleep after I've read everything else in the day. So hopefully with me having more time to read this one today, I'm going to actually get it done. And I think tomorrow I'll read another Polar Fantasy, read a bit of this. Saturday I will dedicate to finishing this, and Sunday I will read my last Polar Fantasy. But so far my reading week is going pretty well. My Polarthon is going pretty well. I am going to include this for Polarthon as well because Jade said when you finish the prompts you can go back and redo them and count the pages towards your team. So I think I'm going to use this one for the prompt dive in because I need to have this finished this week, so I may as well get the points for my team while I'm there. Oh god. Hey, it's becoming real obvious, isn't it, that I only sit in like 3 places in my house, and if I'm not in any of those then I'm probably asleep. Oh, I got an email. I finished Polar Bond and I'm disappointed. I'm so disappointed. You know, there was decent sexual tension in there for quite some time. And then when it got to the actual sex, it just skipped right over it. It was like less than a paragraph, and now I was gearing up for this to be real smutty, and it just really let me down on that front. Turns out as well, it's only 68 pages in total as well, because it has an excerpt from, I think, the third book in the series at the end. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about this. Something that I can say about just this whole video in general is that it seems that I like my porn with a plot, because just the porn or lack of porn in this one isn't really doing it for me. And then, I don't know, I feel like all of these things have a really strong element, but everything else kind of just falls flat. So I gave that one 3 stars as well, and I know I'm giving everything 3 stars, but there is like quite a variation in the 3 stars. So the first one I read, which was Bear of Yours, got 5 out of 10 on Corpile. I will link Corpile down below. It's G from Book Rush rating system. Polar Enemies got 6.86 out of 10, and Polar Bond got 6.14. So there is like a decent variation amongst everything that I'm reading. It's just they are all coming out at 3 stars. They're enjoyable enough. There's just not a lot of substance to them. There's not a whole lot that I can really sink my teeth into, which this is just reinforcing my belief that I don't like short things. And that one, you know, I wouldn't have minded 68 pages if the smut was really good, but it just ceased to exist by the time it got to the point of them actually having sex. It was quite descriptive in other elements, like the fantasizing about him, and also like a couple of elements of foreplay, but the sex, it just like less than a paragraph. What the fuck? I might as well just like wave goodbye to monetization on this video. So yeah, that's that done. That was the prompt for Dark Cover, I believe. And I know what I'm reading next, but I can't remember what it's called, so I'm just gonna go look that up. I am not going to be able to differentiate between these when I'm done, because I can't even remember the names of them whilst I'm actually reading them. But the next one I am reading is for the prompt Arctic setting on the little map wheel, and the bear I'm going to be reading is Alpha Bear's Fated Mate, which is the first book in the Arctic Polar Bear Protectors. So there's nothing in this synopsis that leads me to believe that it is in a snowy setting, but it's called Arctic Polar Bear Protectors, so you would assume that they are in the Arctic. The cover for this one's real interesting as well. I'm gonna have to go to Amazon, aren't I, for a summary of this one. The author for this one as well is Sheena Silver, if any of you guys are interested. She was taken because I couldn't protect her, but I'll get her back because killing her means killing me. Missy is my fated mate. She's human, or so I thought at the time. As an alpha bear, my clan means everything to me. It's what led me to move away from the Arctic. Don't move away from the Arctic. She's a reporter, a normal human being, the kind I'm forbidden to be with. I thought that meant that he's forbidden from being with reporters, like specifically, but no, it's because she's human. My father will do everything to tear us apart, but he's not the only enemy. I'm being hunted down, my life is at risk, and Missy is now in danger because of me. The enemies know that she's my weakness. If she dies, then I die too, but it's not just our lives that are at stake. This nightmare will reveal some cold secrets. Will those secrets be worse than death itself? Well, I guess we'll find out, but I'm gonna say probably not. This one is 166 pages. I'm only gonna be starting it tomorrow. It's pretty early on, it's not even 8:30 yet. But yeah, that is the next one that I will be starting, and I will be cracking on with that tomorrow. Schedule wise, I am going to be making candles tomorrow, and I can't actually read a lot of the time in the intervals between making candles. And we were supposed to have a guy come and fit doors tomorrow, but he's not doing that anymore. So that means that I'm free to roam around at will, which is what we like to hear, I guess. So for now, I'm actually going to be playing Fortnite again, because Ryan's just destroyed his sleeping pattern, which apparently means he wants to play Fortnite every night. And sometimes we go a couple of weeks without playing, you know, so while he is actually able to play, because he's the one with the busiest schedule, or the most unrearrangeable schedule, whenever he wants to play, we kind of just roll with it. But I have 30 minutes until that happens, so I'm going to crack on with a little bit of A Promise with Fire, get a few pages read, and then I'll carry on with that later tonight as well. I'm really excited to continue with that, actually, because while a lot of these polar bear books aren't really doing much for me because there's not enough substance there, Promise of Fire is real promising, so I am expecting great things from that one. Hey guys, it is almost 7 p.m. and today has been a complete wash. My original plan for the day was to spend all day making candles, so I only had a handful of wicks left. I have ordered some now, they will be here tomorrow. I made what candles I could. I made 25. I was aiming to make 60 today, but I made 25, and then I decided that as I couldn't make candles anymore, I would go and edit my video for tomorrow instead of doing it tomorrow daytime. I was doing that as my elderling along announcement video, and I realized that when I'd made the schedule, I had messed up the dates around halfway through the schedule, so I had to stop doing that and try and figure out what I was doing. But I rang Ashley to kind of talk through what may be best with it, and I'm going to film a clip tomorrow with the dates that I messed up, like the correct dates in, and then just like slot it into the middle of the video and explain that I fucked up. So because I had no wicks, I decided that I would make candles tomorrow and edit today. Then I couldn't edit, so then I decided I was doing that tomorrow, and now I've just ended up with a really busy day tomorrow with reading sprints at 6 as well. I've had an interesting day. I feel really down now because I haven't accomplished anything in its entirety today because of all the problems that I've encountered, but I have started reading Alphabear's Fated Mate. I started at lunchtime. I've just read a couple of chapters now as well while I'm waiting for my dinner, and I'm on page 34, which is 19% of the way through, and I don't want to jinx it because of like the other books that I've read in this vlog, but it's really promising and I'm really enjoying what I've read so far. So it's dual perspective, and we're following Missy and Elliot, and this is kind of like, it reads like a sequel almost because these two already have history with each other. Missy is a photographer and she takes photos of wildlife, and she was doing this in the Arctic when she was kidnapped by an evil polar bear and was then saved by Elliot. After that, one of Elliot's clan took her away from the area for her own safety, and he has been searching for her ever since, and she has been kind of waiting for him to find her, but it never happened. Missy moved to Alaska, and there's this big event going on that she's been asked to cover by her boss, so she goes to the location where this is, and Elliot also ends up there because there's stuff about climate change and like conservation in here as well, but because the climate is becoming warmer, Elliot's clan are changing. They're losing their white colouring as a result of the climate change, and because of that they have decided to relocate to somewhere where they will be better camouflaged. So the high alpha of the clan is Elliot's father, and he sends him to Alaska with a few other people to scout out areas that they may be relocating to. Lo and behold, that's the same place where the event is. Missy is there and they meet for the first time in a couple of years. She has a lot of questions about shifters and stuff because she saw them turn into polar bears, but she didn't really understand what was going on there. And Elliot is really thankful to see her again, but because he is next in line to be high alpha, he's been told to stay away from her by his father because he has to find like a suitable shifter mate to like further the strength of his clan. I'm really intrigued so far. The way that this started out, it actually has me really interested in what's going to happen. It just got to the point where they've just met again, but we have like multiple plot threads here. Not sure how it's going to resolve in 166 pages. That is my worry with the length of this, but so far we have an established connection between these two, that they are both hesitant to rekindle even though they both want it because of things that have happened in the past. The writing is good. I'm really enjoying the writing, so everything is promising so far. So I do still aim to finish this tonight. It's going to take me a while because just today it's just not been good. I'm about to have some dinner, finally watch episode 2 of Bridgerton because I watched episode 1 like 2-3 weeks ago now and just haven't had the time to continue. And then throughout the evening I will carry on and try and finish my 4th book for Polathon. Good morning. So I came in here very specifically to put some makeup on while I was having my coffee, but then I realized I have an interview at 6 o'clock tonight with Amanda Boucher, who I'm going to talk about in just a sec, and now I don't know what to do because I'm like, do I put full makeup on? Do I just put my normal daytime makeup on? I don't quite know what I'm doing. I haven't just woke up, but I've just gotten out of bed and I haven't had coffee yet. My coffee is here, so I'm feeling slightly drowsy. I needed to come and check in with you because I did live sprints last night with Gavin, Jade, G, Cody and Ashley, and while we were doing that I finished A Promise of Fire and I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. This book is the shining star of this vlog because everything else has kind of just been mediocre, but I really enjoyed this. It's definitely flawed. It has its problems. I felt like the battle scenes, like any battle scene in here, was kind of rushed. Oh, why do I look so pale? I need to put some makeup on. But I felt like the battle scenes in here were kind of rushed. Again, I'm not even sure if rushed is the right word. They were kind of cluttered, like there was a lot going on and it was just all very much a lot happening in battle scenes. And I also found the love interest to be quite intense. I like him. It's weird because he has like this band of warriors, and I do actually think that I like his band of warriors more than I like him, which is interesting. But he's pretty hot. The thing that's like a bit intense about him is that he is like, he's a decent guy most of the time, but then just randomly he'll be like, you're mine now and you will never leave me, and I'm like, okay, calm down. And that's kind of like, it's weird. It reminds me of how I felt about Tamlin after I finished ACOTAR, where like I liked him for the most part, but there's a couple of things at the end of ACOTAR that happen where I'm like, shouldn't you be doing this instead of just sitting there chilling, kind of thing. And I have those kind of vibes, although I do think, I don't know for sure obviously, but I think that the love interest in here is like the love interest for the series, I would say. But yeah, there's that. But otherwise I thought it was really fun. It's like a bit sarcastic. The main character does like remind me of Spencer still. That didn't change, so she's kind of a little bit annoying in that fashion, but it was funny. It was funny, and there was quite a bit of sexual tension in there. The smut is good. I like the fantasy plot line. I like the world. I like the rest of Griffin's warband. I think they're all really fun because it's kind of like lads all the time. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So 4 stars for this one. Wasn't on my Bookopoly TBR. I haven't started my Bookopoly TBR yet. Aside from that one, I have not yet finished. What was I even reading? Alpha Bear's Fated Mate. That one actually isn't too bad. It's kind of like so far at least, it's the most developed of the polar bear romances I've read. It's the one that has the most like actual story there, even though it's real minimal, and there's like been some smut already, but it's not like super cheesy. So that one's looking promising. I still have 50 pages left, which is what I'm about to go do now. I'm putting makeup on to go read a book because of course I am. And then after that I have to finish, or start and finish, my last polar bear romance of this video. So I've cleared, I say I've cleared my schedule for today. It's just Sunday is the only day that's like a day off, but I do have that interview at 6. I plan on spending however long it takes to finish the books I need to, although to be honest I've got 50 pages of Alpha Bear's Fated Mate and the other one is like 100 and something pages, so it's probably going to take me all day because I get distracted real easily, but it's also not like an overwhelming amount that I need to read. It's like 200 and something pages. So I'm going to go and see if there's any sprints happening while I drink my coffee. Work on finishing Alpha Bear's Fated Mate, maybe take a break and do something else for a bit. Maybe play World of Warcraft. Actually, I'm starting a new World of Warcraft campaign because Ryan just installed it and wants to play, so I need to start a new one with him. And then I'll have my interview and I'll read the other book. But I did get also some book mail today. I'm only going to show you it real briefly. You'll understand why when you see it, because last night I ordered Breath of Fire by Amanda Boucher, which is the sequel. Honestly, just reading this was just so fun, so enjoyable. Really liked it. Big page turner. We got some plot in here, we got some romance, and I'm really excited to read this one, although it probably won't be this month, sadly. It's probably going to be next month. If I can squeeze it in, I definitely will. But with everything, I would like to read all of my Bookopoly TBR, plus I still need to read A Court of Silver Flames when that's released. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm really excited.
I think the next one I'm going to film my wrap up, and then I don't know, I'll see. I need to film something else, but I still don't know what the hell, so
Hey, so I finished Alpha Bear's Fated Mate by Sheena Silver, and I quit. Okay, it is nearly 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. I have a live show in 3 hours and I could spend the rest of my day reading another 200 pages of another polar bear romance, but if I read the words polar bear or mate or like pregnancy and cubs one more time, I think I'm gonna lose my mind. So yeah, essentially I could spend the rest of my day just grinding through another 200-page book, or I could not. So I'm choosing not to, because I have actually already read 5 books this week. So I've completed Polathon with Promise of Fire being my final book. So speaking on Alpha Bear's Fated Mate specifically, this is one of the most enjoyable ones of the week, which based on the cover was not something that I expected. But this one had a decent plot. It had like a well-established kind of like clan dynamic with the polar bears. The conflict was decent, although it did resolve quickly, but this is what I'm finding with all of these books. All of the conflict and stuff was over really quickly. These characters already knew each other and it just gave the story a little bit more depth, I feel, having it so that they did already know each other, as opposed to the majority, aside from actually polar enemies. The other 2 that I read were very much like, hi, we've just met, you're my mate, let's get married. Which was just, it was a little bit much. I mean, I do understand in the context of these being so short, but it was a lot to take in. But yeah, Alpha Bear's Fated Mate felt a little bit more realistic, having that background. Already had the conflict established in the past before the book as well. The smut was okay, it was pretty decent. I was happy with the conclusion, but it was 3 stars as usual. So with that and me not continuing on for a 5th polar bear shapeshifter romance, we need to do a little bit of a reshuffle with the prompts. So for Cold Waters, we are still going with Bear Ever Yours. For Dive In, we have A Promise of Fire. For Dark Cover, I'm still going with Polar Bond. Then for Arctic Setting, we'll still go with Alpha Bear's Fated Mate. And then for Polar Fantasy, we'll do Polar Enemies. So I've completed all of the prompts. Polathon is done. I've read 5 books this week. I've actually read, I think, 972 pages this week, which is really good. I have actually read a lot. And I've enjoyed myself, you know. Some of these books were really, really fun. It's just too much of a mediocre thing could be a little bit too much. But no, they were fun. The highlights of the week, I would say, were Polar Enemies and Alpha Bear's Fated Mates. The worst one I read was Bear Ever Yours, but I also enjoyed it a lot because it was really, really funny. And then Polar Bond was decent, but like doesn't stick out to me. Let's be real, I'm not gonna remember all of these books in like 1 week, 2 weeks time, but I had a great time making this video. So what have we learned from this week? Well, that is the question. All this has really done is reaffirm something that I already knew, and that is that I don't like short fiction. All of these things were under 200 pages, and I do believe in the case of at least 3 of them, if they were full-length books, I would have enjoyed them a lot more because they weren't necessarily bad, they were just short. So I can't feel strongly about them because they were over and done so quickly, and I didn't feel like a lot happened, and I didn't feel like there was a lot of growth and development, and it didn't feel believable. But we already knew that I didn't like short things because of all those reasons. So with that being said, the results of this video are pretty expected. But yeah, I've explored polar bear shapeshifter romance now. That was a thing that up until a few weeks ago I didn't know it existed. Now I do. I have sampled it, and I can firmly say that I think the sample was all that I needed. That was enough. I mean, if a book comes along that sounds interesting and is a polar bear shapeshifter romance, I won't say no, but I think it's safe to say that I will only be reading full length, like 400-page polar bear shapeshifter romances from this point onwards. So yeah, I think that is it for this week's reading vlog. Later tonight I have my live show. I'm going to be cracking on with Ship of Destiny now for the rest of the evening, which I have to have done by next Saturday, which if I wasn't reading any of this today would be 180 pages per day, which is a lot. So once again, not reading a 5th book is also going to help me out with this because I have this much to read in like 6 days. But that's about it for this week's vlog. Thank you so much to Jade for hosting Polathon. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys next week for a more normal vlog from me. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.